Hello, everybody. Greetings. I'd like to call the January meeting of the Deschutes Public Library District Board to order. The first thing on our agenda is our consent agenda, which includes our board's work session minutes from December 5th, our board meeting minutes from December 10th, and the district disbursements for the month. If people have a chance to review these and any additions or corrections. Okay, if not, I would just entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
I second the motion.
okay. Todd, you gonna call the roll on this?
Yes, Aaron Trimble.
Aye.
And Michelle Anderson,
Aye.
and Ann Malkin,
Aye.
and Laura, I always forget, is it Lights or Lease?
It's Lise.
Lease, and,
Aye.
Betsy.
Okay. First up is the public comment section of our meeting. Are there any members of the public that would wish to address the board? Is there in person or online? I think that's the one. Okay. Okay, first up is Robert. He's gonna do an education piece on library facilities.
All right, welcome everybody. It's the beginning of the year, and that's usually when I provide an annual update on our asset protection, which is essentially the portion I cover of the asset protection policy is just talking about our biggest, most expensive assets, our buildings, and why we have them, what our goals are for them, and how well we feel we're meeting them. So this is just a reminder, the section of the asset protection policy that I typically talk about is this section here about the library director will not allow assets to be unprotected, inadequately maintained, or unnecessarily risked. So that's a broad umbrella. Typically what we're talking about is this vision. Our buildings, our facilities are safe and welcoming and of appropriate size to meet the needs of customers and staff. And I always like to throw in a few of the photos that have either been shared on DPL social or maybe some of the internal shots as well, but things that really highlight this vision in this past year. I look at in our new buildings, all of those new furniture pieces and the spaces that we've created and creating really what I would consider to be something that meets that goal and that vision of safe and welcoming places for people, places to sit and study, to read, to just dwell and just look out the window for a little bit, find a quiet spot in a public space. Also, highlight of our final, possibly trained man in the downtown Bend, certainly for next year. Downtown Bend will be in the middle of renovation, so it will at least be on pause for another year. We'll just wrap that one up, and just the turnout among people in the community to come out and see that every year, and to have the space to be able to lay it out and do that for them. And then outdoor activities, we have more opportunities now for outdoor activities because of the designs of these spaces. This particular one was from a library event that they hosted in partnership with a group on raising goats. And so we didn't bring them in the library, but they had this lovely patio on the south side of Redmond, and they had a little kind of pen out there, and people kept looking like, what's this pen? What's going on? And then the van showed up with the goats, and he brought the goats in the pen, and boy, then people all over, people in the community out there in the public square came on by and were like, wow, all right, they're doing something with goats. I got to go and see this, right? And staff went wild for it. It was great. It was so great to have a space like that at Redmond, and to look forward to those kinds of spaces at Central and potentially even downtown as well. Okay, so how do we take that vision and turn it into a tangible strategy? This is just a reminder slide. There's a lot of stuff on there, but essentially we have a process for managing both ongoing preventative maintenance to make sure that our building systems are running at peak performance, and also to handle incoming requests from customers or from staff to address issues in the buildings. As far as our regular preventative maintenance, we have multiple different cycles depending on the system. Now with new buildings, we have several new systems, things like radiant flooring, electric vehicle charging, photovoltaic cells, and solar panels. But we've worked all of those also into our regular inspection cycles. Okay, what did 2025 hold for us in the realm of buildings and facilities management? Well, this was a vast group effort. It included not just a significant portion of DPL staff's involvement, but also Kirby Nagelhout and their subcontractors and Redpoint and the designers and all of the other vendors that helped us furnish and equip these buildings. We finally opened the Redmond Library in January of 2025. Just a year ago today, or from this meeting, we were opening up to the public. And it's been so exciting to see just the last year of use of that building. Also, we reached at the end of the calendar year substantial completion on the Central Library. So by just before Christmas, we got the word that the city had provided a temporary certificate of occupancy related to substantial completion. And the general contractor, Kirby Nagelhout, has completed all of the major elements that we consider and our owner's representative consider to be necessary before we can start bringing staff, furniture, fixtures, equipment, and all of those other elements to get us to that point where we're really ready to open to the public. Along with those openings, we did have closures. So 2025 saw the closure of our leased space at Borden's Corner. That's the former East Bend Library, which we closed in mid-November. And we drew down the rest of our equipment, and we were able to successfully disposition every major furniture piece and other element at East Bend to members of the community, taxpayers whose money had gone towards those purchases, or maybe new people into the community who could benefit from this good of equipment and assets that had reached the end of useful life for us. So we weren't really prepared to bring them over into the new buildings. It could still be useful for other people. Things like some of the old bookshelves and some other furniture pieces that were really appreciated by the people who were able to see them. The Redmond Design Center, although we've been out of that space for a while, remember that we had a 3-year commercial lease. We came to the end of that 3rd year at the end of 2025. So as of December 31st, the district is no longer in the rental leased space business. The only kind of rental we're spending now is for temporary storage. And in fact, in 2026, one of my major action items is to take a look at that leased or that rented storage and to see if that continues to be necessary once we have completed the vast majority of our construction projects. Okay, this one's a new one for this year, and it was a question that's really kind of been in the back of my mind with the completion of Redmond and opening up to the public in January 12 months ago. It means that we have a good 12 months of data on just how we're operating these buildings in their well, certainly Redmond in its first year, Lapine, Sisters, Sun River a little bit further along. Obviously, one of the goals in the bond projects in general was to develop systems that would run more efficiently and save the district money long term. Now, I didn't give you year-to-year comparisons other than maybe one note here, but there's a couple of points of comparison that can show us how we're performing. First of all, with the new Redmond building, its square footage is very close to downtown Bend. It's also a 2-story building. So we have a nice comparable of existing HVAC systems and heating and cooling of that building over a 12-month period compared to Redmond heating and cooling. A couple of distinctions there are that Redmond is fully electric, whereas downtown Bend is a mixture of electric heating and cooling as well as gas to supply power for heating. So you're looking at two buildings roughly comparable, laid out roughly the same way, and the 12-month energy cost for Redmond is 1/3 of downtown Bend. Electrical usage is less than 10% compared to downtown Bend. Now that's net electrical usage. So remember, one of the key elements of Redmond was a goal to make this a net zero building. You'll notice that number is not zero. I would love for it to be zero, but it's quite low. It is lower than any of our other buildings in terms of megawatt hours usage, once you include the generation of power from the photovoltaic system that's at that building. A couple of notes for comparison. Okay, so first of all, why haven't we reached net zero in that first year? Several things in play. The first one is that in this first year, we've done a lot of fine-tuning, tweaking, and adjusting throughout the year. The systems in Redmond, while they were ready for us to open to the public, we were still learning for a lot of them. We were still making a lot of adjustments, and there were some hiccups along the way that we had to work through with our vendors in order to get systems running as well as they could. Also, net zero was based on a certain design that may have assumed a certain level of comfort in our buildings. And then once we're open to the public, we're trying to be more responsive to both staff and customer observations in real time. And that means that we might be running the system a little bit warmer in the winter than maybe was specified, a little bit cooler in the summer than maybe was specified. And so that's a trade-off that we're continually making as we run and maintain these buildings to try and meet that vision, right? We want to make safe, comfortable spaces. We also want to run them as efficiently as possible. And so we're continually looking at those trade-offs to try and run things more efficiently. I'm working with our commissioning agent, the one that the district engaged at the beginning of all the projects, to kind of certify the buildings were fit for use and met the specification. They're also helping us as part of our LEED certification for Redmond and for Central to provide what's called enhanced commissioning, which is essentially ongoing check-ins. Rather than just saying, yep, day one, systems all work and they meet all the measurements, we're checking periodically at the measurements of how all the systems are running and comparing them against where our benchmarks say they should be, to see, are pumps kind of running too long? Are boilers running too hot? Those kinds of fine details to really dial in on a more efficient building usage in year 2 versus year 1. The other big variable with Redmond is that we have electric vehicle charging stations, which we'll also have in Central. When the designers specified all of the energy usage for the building, they had to make certain assumptions on what EV charging levels we could expect. And I haven't had a chance yet to really dig into the data, but it's possible that EV charging just represents a variable from year to year as people, use it more or maybe use it less. We could see some fluctuations there that would factor in on that net zero target. The other nice comparison, I asked myself, okay, so how far back do we need to go to look at the former building? Because there was a lot of discussion at the time of, can we make do with the existing building? Can we meet the goals of expansion, increased collection, increased usage of space? And ultimately, we determined that the old building could not be expanded in a way that would allow us to meet all those goals. In addition, that building was using very old and less efficient heating and cooling systems. So we look at 2022, which was the last 12-month stretch, full year stretch in Redmond before we closed for the new building to be built. And we're actually spending less money and less in terms of overall net electrical usage, even compared to a building that was 60% of the size of the existing building.
And at energy cost levels.
And at energy cost levels from 2022.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. I could talk a little bit more about the other elements, but I'm just very pleased to see really comparable levels of usage in La Pine, Sisters, and Sun River compared to their prior. When we brought in additional heating systems in those buildings, they were, for several of those buildings, the first time we had electric heat pumps. And so the question was, gas prices versus electric prices, you start to ask yourself, is this going to cost us significantly more by introducing electrical systems in hybrid with gas? And it turns out these numbers are really comparable to pre-renovation numbers. So we're not running significantly more in terms of overall cost, especially when you factor in inflation of energy prices. There is a bit of a blip on Sisters, that one, even though it's the same size as La Pine, and it's laid out exactly like La Pine, and it has all the same heating and cooling as La Pine, it has 2 EV chargers that are also tied into that building. And so that accounts for a significant increase in electrical usage. On top of that, it's the only propane heated building in the district because there's no gas utility that will service that library. And propane costs are significantly higher unit costs versus gas. That's my last slide. Oh, no, I don't have, no, there's, of course, looking forward to the next year. So the next year, what are some of our challenges? Well, I mean, we're getting ready right now to open up Central, right? We're bringing all this new systems, new equipment. We're training throughout the month of January, and then going to be turning around and training staff on how to use all this cool new stuff in the new buildings. Oops. And so the challenges are just, getting ourselves as familiar as possible with all of these new things in our new buildings, while continuing to maintain that same level of service and to meet that same vision. There are specific contracts that are new for us for Central Library, things that we don't have in any of the other buildings, like an electrical backup generator. So we're getting those contracts lined up, getting maintenance schedules locked down for those kinds of new systems. And then the other big element of this year, as you're all aware, is that transition in 2026 of Downtown Bend from full operations down into its own renovation period. Moving our staff over there, moving materials over there, helping the public understand that transition as well, and then creating a welcoming space for them over in this new place that they haven't ever set foot in. So it's all exciting stuff, but it is definitely a set of challenges that I look forward to reporting to you January of 2027.
I want to point out that we basically just transitioned Robert to sucking up all the information on the systems for the last week.
Yeah.
Into doing this presentation. So I know you're probably experiencing this like, oh, okay, I'm doing something different.
I've been doing a lot of listening and a lot less talking.
Yeah.
So it's a shift of gears. Any questions?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the EV usage and what we think that's gonna cost? And, has the public, are those stations at Redmond, say, busy all the time, or?
I would want to spend a little bit more time looking at our overall reports. We do get feedback from ChargePoint, which is the company that manufactured the charging stations at Redmond. And it's a pretty good dashboard. You can run tons of reports. I have not yet had time to really sit down and develop long-term trends. So I look forward to reporting back to you all on that a little bit further into 2026. That one I have a lot of fidelity in terms of data. I can tell you like how many hours a day did people hook in, how many people took advantage of that first free period of a couple hours, and how many ended up leaving it plugged in for longer duration. It may even tell us like number of vehicles or even types of users, because everyone has their own individual ChargePoint account. So we could probably get that information of like how many people from the community have really benefited from this amenity. So I would ask for a little bit more time, but I can definitely take that as an action to try and pull that data together for a future report to the district.
Yeah, I admit that that's something that I don't know very much about. And so we're giving them 2 hours for free, and then after that, there's
yes. So this was where you have to start somewhere, right? So we had already agreed with the city of Sisters, when we partnered with them to install the chargers there, that those charging stations would not be pay stations, at least for the first year or two, as we piloted that program. So we wanted the amenity to be somewhat comparable, but we also didn't want it to create a situation where you really did have one or two super users who are parked there all day, preventing that from being a true community amenity. That's not easy to say. And so we landed on a couple of hours free and then charging afterward as a kind of a nudge to a person to say, you're welcome to stay here longer, but you're only going to be able to really take advantage of it as a amenity for 2 hours, after which most people, we figure, will be incentivized to clear the space and allow another member of the community to use it.
Right. And are these considered like slow charging stations or?
They are type 2, so it's not a trickle charge,
Uh-huh.
but it's not going to be like the kind that you would get at like a commercial charging station. And the usage on that seemed, again, like a good compromise of providing an amenity, but also being mindful of district resources, because those level 3 chargers, it can get quite expensive because they draw a lot of power.
Right.
Well, then you run the risk of people stopping by and not using the library, just using the
And
charger.
that was the question I had, is that data that we can pull on,
Average time.
well, and where are these cars coming from? Are these cars coming over the pass?
Oh.
Just on their way to somewhere else where, like the range is like, this is the first charging station I
Yeah.
get to as I come over the pass.
That's a good question. I don't know if I can get that level of data of like where the cars are coming from. Because I think they maintain a pretty solid line between like shareable information versus personally identifiable information in terms of the dashboard and reporting. So that one might be a little tricky. I will say that Redmond overall has a pretty decent set of options, and several of those are that high capacity level 3. People passing through are going to tend to gravitate towards those because they want a quick recharge and get back on the road. That said, I don't know any way for us to know if people plugged in and walked into the library or plugged in and walked to the coffee shop.
Yeah.
I don't know a way to track that one.
And I guess the question is that our intent too, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not tracking people on using our computers and what they're using our
That's right.
computers for, right? It's like a free,
Right.
a service we provide our
That's right.
community.
Right.
Yeah.
And those pricing levels, the 2 hours free and then charging afterwards, that's something that we get to set. So if that's something that in our long-term analysis, it looks like, yeah, this is probably not creating the outcomes we want, we can always change that policy for Redmond and for Central. Sister's a little trickier because it's a different system. And of course, like I say, we're partnered with the city on that one. So we want to continue to be in dialogue with the city about any changes.
Right.
For the downtown library, are you going to be giving away some of the furniture and fixtures that are not going to be used in the remodel? And if so, do you have any like organizations that you've identified, or what does that process kind of look like?
Yeah, so in terms of dispositioning of end-of-life assets out of downtown Bend, we're going to follow the same process that we did for East Bend and for Redmond, which is to say we'll follow our stated documented processes. So what does that mean? We place those items out for public notice, and we've chosen a particular website that's like a public auction website, and we just designate it as it's a non-auction item. It is a first person to claim. Or if it's something that still carries some value, then perhaps we put that up for auction and see, what it is worth it to people to claim. In general, we try and cast as broad a net as possible in the community, since we receive funds from a broad base of taxpayers. So we tend to want to try and have that be that public notice. That said, we have worked with organizations to let them know, okay, these things are up on auction. You are a member of the community as well. you're welcome to also participate in that process. And so that's kind of how East Bend and Redmond went. There were some organizations that raised their hand and said, yeah, we like that, but it was through that process, and they kind of had equal standing with members of the community.
Thank you for the energy slide.
Oh, yeah.
Those are my questions.
I've been really
Yeah,
dying
like-
to like, yeah, I've been sitting on that information for a little bit. I'm like, oh, we gotta wait for 12 months.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Question, how many FTE does it take to manage Central's electrical solar system? Is that like a dedicated position?
I think what I'm hearing in your question is, how many on-staff facilities personnel do we think it takes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's.
Okay, so right now, and again, this is early days in the new building. Right now, we've been able to adequately meet district needs with the new buildings in the mix with 2 members of our facilities team. We're obviously keeping a close eye on that. I supervise them directly, so I have one-on-ones with them regularly, checking in on workload, stress level, all of that. And obviously there's fluctuations. I know I'm super stressed. I know they're super stressed right now because we're moving, right? We're getting into a building that we haven't lived in, worked in, looking at systems we haven't looked at yet. So this is a stressful time right now. Once things settle back down and we're into more of a steady state at Central, again, it's time to check in. Okay, now we've added this additional building. It's very large. But in terms of the systems, in terms of keeping on top of things, of regular maintenance, check-ins, answering staff requests for action, all of those things, let's see. Are we meeting that? Are we falling behind? Is it time for us to bring in more help? So it's really a kind of an active discussion and evaluation as we go. Yeah.
But they do all of those systems related work. The library staff is not responsible for.
Yeah, so they are members of the library staff, but their specific
Right,
role
yeah.
is dedicated toward the operation and maintenance oversight of our systems. And what that means is that quite often with these specialized systems, we're still calling out an outside vendor to get hands into these items. And that's good for the district for lots of reasons, not least of which is that we're getting licensed and bonded people to do things like electrical work, plumbing work, the stuff that can be dangerous or can cause damage, right? So in terms of items of more limited scope that have less risk attached to it, that's what our staff is for. Also, they're the primary point of contact with those outside vendors when things are greater scope or of higher risk.
I have one more question. I know that I think it's the battery that holds all of the power is like the first for our area.
Yes.
And so what kind of training has gone into understanding that the maintenance and the risk of that?
It's a great question.
I know because I hear about it in the fire department.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the fire department is very interested to know what we know about the best.
But I'm not asking.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So the short answer is we have received preliminary training from the manufacturer's representative when they were on site bringing it online. Once that system is commissioned as part of the overall photovoltaic system, we will be on site for the demonstration of operation, because right now that battery isn't like charged and involved in the system at all. They're still bringing it online.
So
And then we'll circle back for follow-on training as well.
for the rest of us, because when you're saying battery, I'm thinking of. Okay, so
I should have included a picture of this in my slides. Okay, imagine, if you will, a container car, like in a train. Cut that in half, and it's got the corrugated steel outside. It looks like this big rugged, like it would come off of a tanker ship and a container ship and just kind of just deposited by the stevedores. Like it's that. It looks like a big metal box with 2 doors. You open up and you look inside, and there's banks and banks and banks of battery cells that all basically store up excess electricity production from the photovoltaic system in the event that there's a power outage on the grid. If we're connected in through Central Electric Cooperative for that building. If CEC has a power outage of any duration, it would essentially function like the generator next door in downtown Bend and kick on and provide backup electricity to critical systems. Remember that one of the things we're doing with this new building is we're relocating the kind of the heart of the district IT network. So the IT network is going to reside there. We need to have dedicated power so that we don't have loss of service, because if there's a power outage down in Bend, we want people up in Sisters to still be able to check out books, right? And so that battery system, it's called the BESS, which is the backup electrical storage system, or maybe it's battery electric storage system. Anyways, we call it the BESS. The BESS sits in the service yard at Central Library, and it just looks like a big old metal container, and until you open it up and look at it, and that's what it's for. That system, in cooperation with the fire department, as they were certifying us to be fire safe in that building, required a lot of additional fire safety elements. So it has its own dedicated sprinkler system. It's a dry system because you don't want a wet system with a gigantic battery, and those kinds of things. It has its own separate, like, special exit in case someone's in there if there's a problem. So it's we've done a lot of things to make that a safe system, but it is a new system for this area. And so I think for a lot of people, the city, the fire department, and us, we're very interested to see long-term, like, how does it perform? What's maintenance look like? Are there conditions where like it would behave differently than a gas-powered or diesel-powered generator? We're all learning that one.
And you do like a dry run to make sure it works as intended?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That's an essential question. So when we talk about the commissioning agent for these projects, that commissioning agent is, it's a systems engineering firm. They're third party. They work direct for the district. They work for us, not for the contractor. But they show up on site for the contractor with their document that says, okay, according to the design specification, this system's supposed to do this, this, and this. And they check the box, or they put an X, and they say, when are you going to fix it? And then next week they check in. Did you fix it yet? Right? And so all of that, and part of that is training, but also part of that is making sure that every one of those critical systems has gone through its paces and demonstrated that it behaves per specification, including the backup battery system.
Yeah. So many moving parts for you guys.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
There's so much technology and it's so critical. I mean, you show up in the morning to open the building and the heat's not on.
Mhm.
Somebody's got to really understand these systems.
Yeah.
What to do.
Yeah, well, the facilities team is a really knowledgeable team. They both have backgrounds in building systems or mechanical systems, and they just really come with just years and years and years of expertise. We're really lucky to have them. Jared Haller, Kevin O'Neill, they're fantastic. Unfortunately, you've never seen them at a board meeting, but I hope if you see them at one of our other events, you get a chance to talk with them.
Thank you. Okay, kind of tagging along with this is the monitoring report for asset protection. Todd, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, a couple of other things that it mentions. It talks about our levels of insurance. I talk about that. We're well covered there. A lot of the things Robert covered. One I definitely want to point out is that this policy does need to be updated. The $10,000 limit is not in line with the policy that the board passed in 2023 that raised that limit to $25,000. And I just shared with you our purchasing rules that we did pass in 2023 that shows that. And I thank Robert for catching that, because every year when I look at this, I was grabbing the old form that we had and saying, yeah, it looks good. So that one will need to update. And And then also, this does talk a little bit about meeting our auditor standards, which we've already covered in the last meeting, and following state laws regarding investment of capital assets. And that's something that, one, the board has set a policy for investments and something we talk about on a quarterly basis as well. So my interpretation is that we are in compliance with this policy.
Is the amendment of this policy, can we do that at this meeting or?
Yes, yes, I think it's a simple one. I would say I would probably suggest,
Doing
which I
a
should
two
have-
separate motions.
yeah, a motion just to change that amount to $25,000 and then do a separate one.
Right.
And I'm
Okay,
sorry I didn't write you one for 25,000.
yeah, might as well take care of it all, thinking of it.
Yes.
Go a year and we forget to do it, so. All right, does anyone want to make a motion to increase the $10,000 amount in number 5 to $25,000? Are people understanding what?
Yes,
Yeah.
I move to amend the, what is it,
The asset protection executive limitations policy?
asset protection limitations policy
Yes.
to amount to $25,000 in number 5 of policy 3F. Is that what you'd say? How'd you say?
No, that's great. Yeah.
I second that. Excellent motion.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Right? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, we can move to approve the monitoring report and find that we're in compliance. So we'd like to make a motion for that.
I move that the library district is in compliance with the asset protection executive limitations policy.
Second?
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. All right, next up is a report from Emily on our downtown Bend opening day collection visit.
I got sick of giving you guys PowerPoints, so I made you a
Handouts.
handout instead. Here, Todd, you get one too. Isn't that nice? Here. Thank you. I should have given these ahead of time, but yeah,
Thanks.
then you want one since you're part of the team. Robert, do you want one since you're a business manager? Sorry, I'm on.
Everybody's got paper.
You can share one back there. I have a couple. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I am excited to present with you today the outcome of our request for proposal for opening day collection for the Downtown Bend Library. So a reminder of how we got where we are is that Baker and Taylor was our primary materials vendor. They also had sole source contract to be our vendor for our opening day collections for all of our libraries. And that was largely because of the fact that they were able to give us our materials fully shelf ready, including our proprietary Wayfinder classification system. Baker and Taylor closed their doors unexpectedly in October, and we have been trying to pull our puzzle pieces back together to complete all of our building projects. So step one in that process is to figure out what vendors out there are available to actually complete our tech services biggest project. So I know we're all very excited about Central, and we are too, but the Downtown Bend Library is actually the biggest ODC, opening day collection ODC that the district will do. And that is because the materials that are moving to Central are actually every single book that currently exists in the Downtown Bend Library and every single book that was in the East Bend Library, plus additional items that we purchased to open that library. So that means that when we open Downtown Bend, there are no books for it. So we needed to identify a vendor that could do that for us. Right now, the estimates from our architectural firm is about 100,000 items. With a budget of 2 to 3 million, it's still well within the amount that you've already allocated for the bond projects. So we put out an RFP in November to identify what vendors were available to provide a collection of that size. And within that bidding process, we received 5 total bids from 5 vendors. So within your handout here, the 5 vendors that responded to that RFP, they are Follett, Ingram, Libraria, Mackin, and Midwest Library Services, or Service. I always want to add an S to that, but I have to remember it's Midwest Library Service. Of those 5 vendors, I'm going to go through some of the factors that we looked at when we received the bid and some of the things that really stood out to our RFP committee. Our RFP committee was myself, Lynn as the Assistant Director of Operations, and then one of our collection development librarians, Zeb Ebelhawk. Out of those 5 vendors, I'm just going to take us through a process of elimination. So the first is that both Follett, Libraria, well, I'll say, and I'll include Mackin in this as well, are largely school services. So one of the ripple effects of the loss of Baker and Taylor is that the vendors that are still available to public libraries are extremely inundated with the orders that they normally would have gotten, that would have gone to Baker and Taylor. So a big vendor that is not on this list that did not bid was Brodart. And they actually sent me an email and said, we can't take on that capacity. So I'm not surprised that we heard from vendors that normally don't service public libraries. So the 3 vendors that are typically servicing school libraries would be Follett, Libraria, and Mackin. Both Follett and Libraria's bids were very unclear if they even have the capacity to provide adult or teen materials. And so within the committee decision, Follett and Mackin were already tenuous at best for us, knowing that we needed to provide all ages for this opening day collection. So then we're looking at Ingram, Mackin, and Midwest Library Service. So all 3 of those have pros and cons, and I want to take us through what they provide to us already. So the first I'll actually start with is Mackin. So Mackin is typically a school library vendor. They provide obviously our elementary schools K through 12 with their library services. Mackin is very much trying to break into the public library sector, and as a matter of fact, they were the only vendor that was able to provide us with our central opening day collection. So, and among the other things that Mackin was able to do is a lot of the things that we require as a public library, they didn't have, and they actually built it for us. And they are delivering on every single ask. So Mackin, I think as they grow into the public library sector, is going to be a very powerful vendor for public libraries. That said, they said repeatedly in their bid that they have more confidence in kid and teen materials, and it wasn't super clear to us how much adult materials they're able to acquire at this time. The reason why the central ODC is working is because the materials that we needed were kid and teen. So then we move to Ingram. Ingram is our current kind of backup library vendor right now. So the next time you hear from me, it's because we're going to be doing an RFP for primary materials vendor. But right now, Ingram is filling that void for us. We have a very good relationship with them. They're able to provide us with quite a few materials. They are, at this point, probably the biggest front runner for public library materials. And with that, they are getting the biggest slam of orders from Baker and Taylor. And as a current user of Ingram and a current client and relationship with Ingram, we are already feeling the effect of the number of orders are going to them. Response times from, customer service is getting slower, orders are getting slower. But the biggest thing that came out from the RFP that we didn't realize is that Ingram cannot provide us with shelf-ready materials at the level that we need. So again, if you think about 100,000 items, how do you get 100,000 items into a library? We don't have the staff to do this project without it being shelf-ready. They did provide a third-party contract agreement with their bid, which is to offer Backstage to do the final cataloging and processing. But frankly, we already have a relationship with Backstage, so we don't necessarily need to go through Ingram to do that. If that was the path that we would want to take, we already have those processes in place. And then this gets into very library specific world, but they don't provide us with the level of catalog records that we need either. So we would also need an additional process in place to get those materials in. So Ingram, though, might come across as like the obvious choice. As we read through their bid, there were a lot of red flags for us as to whether or not this was actually doable moving forward with Ingram. So the last one is Midwest Library Service. So they have very traditionally provided materials for both public libraries and academic libraries. As a matter of fact, the last time we did an RFP for primary materials vendor, Midwest Library Service did bid for that, and we did interview them for that primary materials vendor. The reason why we didn't choose them at that time is, one, their ordering interface felt a little dated and seemed difficult for our collection development librarians as a primary materials vendor. And the second was their discount structure was not at the same level as the other vendors. So we were going to end up spending more money with them as a primary materials vendor than we would with other vendors. Those elements still existed in the bid for ODC. So again, their ordering interface might feel a little clunky, and they did give us the least robust discount structure of all of the vendors, but otherwise they were able to provide us with all of our most important elements, the highest of which is shelf-ready library materials. And their biggest selling point for us is the fact that anything library in Colorado, which is also a word-based classification system, accepted them for their opening day collections, and they have been able to provide anything with full shelf-ready materials. So out of confidence of the vendors and the ability to actually provide what we need for this specific project, they really rose to the top for us as a library, or as a vendor that knows public libraries, that knows a word-based classification system, that can give us full shelf-ready and provide us with the full content that we wanted. So our recommendation to you all is to bid, to accept the decision from the RFP committee that we would like to move forward with Midwest Library Service for the RFP outcome for the opening day collection for downtown.
Emily, could you, just because we have some new board members, can you describe what shelf-ready, what constitutes a shelf-ready book?
Yeah, so Shelf Ready has a number of elements. So I think I just want to start with the book itself, right? Because I think we hear a lot of feedback just generally from the community right now with the loss of Baker and Taylor. Why can't you just go buy the books from Amazon or Barnes & Noble? So the book itself is step one to getting materials into circulation. The next biggest step is making sure that we get the data of that book into our integrated library system, also called an ILS, so that people can search for it in the catalog. Typically that data is given to us from the vendor, so we don't have to input 100,000 records into our system. They give us what we call record loads so that we can load that into the system. So that's a really big element of it. That's two different record loads. So the first is an order record load, so you know that the material is actually on order. And the second is the actual full record so that you can search for it accurately in the system. Within that second record load is all of the item data. So every single book has a barcode and a call number. And obviously you've seen a circulating library book, the stickers on the book itself. So both that item record data that we load into the system and the records that correspond with it have to match. And a shelf-ready vendor will make sure that that data all matches and you're actually putting the associated barcode and call number on the correct book so that it will circulate properly. And then the last is the RFID tag so that when somebody takes it to check out on the shelf, on the self-checks, that it reads that specific barcode. So all of those elements, when it's shelf ready, a vendor does for us. So for a collection of this size, 100,000 items, we actually do need a vendor to be able to give us all of those data points, process all of those books, and encode all of those RFID tags.
Thank you. People have any questions about this?
Really cool.
Thanks.
I've never seen anything like this before. I like it.
Oh, it's fun making it.
Yeah, no, it's very.
I was like, can I do another PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what went into the metrics, the scores?
Yeah, sure. So you'll see in the box where it says point availability examples. So within the RFP process, it was our responsibility to let the vendors know what we would be scoring them on. So I only gave an example of 5, but I believe there were something like 15 different metrics that we were scoring the bids on. I highlighted these 5 because they were the 5 that really delineated between the vendors that bid. Each of the scoring metrics were weighted, so not everything meant the same amount. So for example, availability of inventory, so being able to provide the content that we actually need to open the building, as well as the shelf-ready processes were the highest point values. We also included things like collection development tools. So how much of the 100,000 items is going to be required of our collection development librarians to individually choose, and how many of those elements can actually be provided from the vendor from MLS librarians on their staff. We also obviously included discount schedule. Being fiscally responsible is clearly important to us. There are other elements that were on here, such as responsiveness to the RFP. Did you actually answer the questions that we asked you to answer? Or customer service. How long does it take for you to respond to our queries? So within each of those metrics, all of our members of the RFP committee independently scored every single bid. So we were not allowed to talk to each other about the bids while we were scoring. And then we had a set scheduled date where we would bring together our scores and have a conversation about our observations about the bids and what really stood out to us as pros and cons from each of the vendors, and compile them into the report that you're seeing. So every one of us, again, there were 3 individuals that were scoring. We each had a total of 300 points we could award, which is the total possible of 900 total points that you could get. And so within, for example, the pie chart, that was the full score that every individual vendor got. And then I also broke it down into percentages in case numbers wasn't particularly useful, and different ways to look at that same data point.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can I ask you another random question?
Please, that's what you're for.
Like, say I was buying Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on Amazon, or I was buying it through our vendor. Like, what kind of price differential are we looking at for then providing them shelf ready with all of the ways to track and analyze?
That's a great question. So, and it's not an easy answer.
I'm sure it varies.
It varies vastly. So, you'll see in the kind of green and the percentages under the, pie chart where I said the discount range offered is between 5 and 44%. So it's 5 and 44% off of retail. So our most common is about 40% off of any book that you would get. So the library is typically getting something 30 to 40% less than what it would cost you to buy if you were going to go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. You do then add additional costs, right? So the additional costs are the cost of the cataloging record, the cost of the barcodes, the cost of the labels that we put on the book, even down to like the protective covers on those labels, the RFID tag, the property stamp, and then they also charge a cost for their staff time if we are having them do it. So typically, I would say any book with all of the processing materials that go into it is maybe about $5 on top of the 40% off retail that we get. So typically, it does still cost us less than it would be like going to Barnes and Noble and just buying the book itself, but with a lot of additional elements to make it circulating as a library book.
And this RFP is just for opening.
This RFP, yes, that's a really good question to clarify. So this RFP is specifically just for opening day collection, just for downtown Bend. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are in the middle of drafting an RFP for primary materials vendor and hope to get that out here in February is our ideal time to publish the RFP for primary materials vendor. So some of the things that didn't rise as a higher score for us as an opening day collection, for example, maybe the delivery times or the discount schedule are going to be much higher considerations as our primary materials vendor. And I think one thing that I haven't called out yet, and I think it's worth verbalizing, one benefit of moving forward with Midwest Library Service as a vendor for opening day collection. We have learned from the downfall of Baker and Taylor that diversifying our vendors is a very good thing. And I think if we can set up Midwest Library Service as a vendor that is in our pocket, that can provide us with shelf ready, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be our primary materials vendor. We don't know. We'll find out what the outcome of that is. But just having yet another vendor in our pocket is not a bad strategy for us to have.
Seems like a good way to approach it.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like the industry is going through seismic shifts because of
Yes.
this retail exposure. So a year from now may look completely different than
Absolutely.
right now.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
So that RFP for primary materials vendor, is that a set time period, like a 2-year? And then you would look at that again?
Typically, yeah, that's a great question. So when we did it before, we did do a 5-year contract, but we are not going to do 5 years time because of the seismic shifts. I think it will be either 1 or 2 year with the possibility of renewal. So RFPs take a lot of time, and especially an RFP of that size and the amount of money that we spend. So we don't want to put ourselves in a situation of having to do another RFP in a year or 2 years. But if we set it as, for example, a 2-year contract, then it gives us the opportunity to open up an RFP again if it looks like things have changed quite a bit. So my recommendation would be a 1 or 2 year contract with the possibility of renewal.
Okay. So we need to provide some signing authority for this. So, someone make a motion?
I will move to provide the library director a signing authority up to $2 million for the downtown Bend Library opening day collection contract. Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just the volume of purchases. This couldn't have come at a worse
It
time.
really couldn't.
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's just,
We're figuring it out.
yeah, no, I know you are, but it's like a lot.
Thank you for recognizing.
Yeah.
And I would just say, given that you are having to scramble to do this, I really appreciate how carefully you are going on.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, good reason. Thank you.
It's your.
Okay, next up is Jennifer with an update on director recruitment.
Yes. And I've got a timeline, it's just not coming up, so let's see what's. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna pick up where we left off last month and let everybody know where the steering committee's at as of today. So, we, met as a steering committee on, the week of January 5th. I think we met Tuesday, January 6th. At that point, we, firmed up our request for quote. Also, just, I don't know, semantics, RFQ, RFP. RFQ is the smaller dollar. That's what drives the difference in request for quote versus request for proposal. So just in case, get a question there. That went around for kind of some final tweaks, and then at the steering committee's approval, I went ahead and sent that to 6 prospects or national firms that we had selected, and that went out on Wednesday, January 7th. And our respondents have until 5 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, January 23rd to respond to the RFQ process. So that's pretty much where we are now. And we're taking our time period to just make sure that when everything comes in, that it has a soft place to land. So I'm refining some of our review. We're going to do a calculation ranking based on, responsiveness and other points of value for the vendor. So I'm kind of finishing that piece up so that each steering committee member can use that tool independently, and then we'll come together on January 27th, and we'll kind of narrow down our recommendation for the board. And I believe
We have a special meeting set for February 4th for the whole board. That will be an online meeting, just to go over the committee's recommendations and vote on them. Cool.
yes. So thus far, as we sort of glide into phase 2, everything seems to be going okay. I will say this is probably the easier part, sort of the roller coaster is on its way up. So, but thus far, I can report that the steering committee is meeting its critical timeframes for, with the timeline that's presented on the board there. So any questions?
Okay. All right, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah. Been a lot of work in the background, so, but I think it's going well. And I think people are expressing interest, so that's.
And it will be nice on the 4th to share with you guys everything that we get back so we can get your input.
Right. That's when we have the real work. Beginning. So the selection of that firm is really an important piece to this as far as the success of the recruiting. So, okay, now we have our results policy edits from
our
work session, correct?
yes,
Mhm.
the December 5th one. So what I gave you is a clean copy. If you wanted to see the marked up copy, that's in your minutes from December 5th.
Right.
And oops, except I need to take number 2 out of one of these. And we just need, with those changes, we just need you to approve if you wish to move forward with those. not a lot of explanation since you wrote it.
Exactly. Exactly. Does anybody have any questions for Todd or when we need and what we changes which we might not, but important.
Mhm.
Right. So any questions? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the revised results policies.
I second the motion. In favor? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're up to a visit with Greg from the easy chair.
Yes, indeed. I turned off my ice machine so you didn't have to listen to it hum.
Keep that
Happy New
eyes.
Year, everyone. So, the report over for the month of December was pretty straightforward. Not a lot of change, not a lot of information or change information there. But, from a schedule standpoint, it was super focused on activity on Central. And as you know, we did achieve our temporary certificate of occupancy to occupy the building and a certificate of substantial completion with Kirby that they've substantially completed their work to utilize the building. And they still do have items to wrap up and finish and punch list, and then the additional things that we've asked them to do. And they'll continue to support the whole move-in process all the way to opening. But that has progressed really well, and it really set us up to launch the FF&E startup and move-in that began at the beginning of January here, actually a little bit in December with moving in some AMH equipment and a little bit of shelving and a few things that we were able to do. But from a schedule standpoint, we're still tracking well to our planned opening in May. And, we had a meeting today, and the FF&E move-in process over the first, week and a half has gone fairly smooth. Not a lot of hiccups, and everybody's making some really good progress there. The downtown Bend is the other activity that's going on, and it's really planning to be prepared and ready to launch that project as we start the shutdown process that will start in February and continue all the way into April, of how we slowly close components of the building and move into a lobby service for a while before we go full closure and full into construction. We are doing a evaluation of the downtown Bend schedule right now with Kirby, and really taking a good hard look at that, of making sure we've got the right time planned for. And that'll come out here probably at the end of this month as part of the January report, any updates or changes to the schedule. So, but nothing else really that was notable on the schedule. The budget side, as you saw, there was literally no changes to any of the budget. That was pretty stacked. And part of that is because we're going through a full budget evaluation. So all of the projects in the bond, everything, and just really taking a deep dive, looking at what we've spent to date, what we still have within each individual project budget for all of the different work packages, what things are still ongoing or may be planned in the future. Looking at all of those costs, one of the big costs that we're evaluating right now is around the interest earnings from the arbitrage report and our tax liability. And so we'll be reporting on all of that at the end of the month and talk to you guys all about that in February. And so this last couple months and this month have been very kind of intense in just doing a deep dive and evaluation of it. And that way it'll really give us a good sense of where we're at a major milestone of having completed construction on Central and really wrapping up Central here over the next 4 months, 5 months to opening, and then launching into downtown Bend. So That is all moving along well. So, like I said, no real changes there. Um, I would say that, the expectation is that we are going to see a reduction in the, overall contingency. The total contingency was sitting, right around, combined contingency was just under 17 million. And that is going to take a significant drop down of some money as we deal with the tax liability. There, it's going to be much higher than originally forecasted. Uh, and then planned uses of contingency within the projects. And so you'll see all of that coming up here. And it's nothing that is of like concern, like we have any problems. There's still going to be a very substantial reserve contingency uh, uh, left at that time that we'll talk about what it may be used for, what it may be planned for. But I don't see any big change in the risk associated with the bond program at all. So that's what's going on that side. Procurements and contracts is really probably some of the most active is a little bit on downtown Bend. We, finalized the design revisions and those contracts for some of the FF&E are getting wrapped up along with construction costs that Kirby is evaluating. And then we're doing a real deep evaluation with Kirby on construction costs for the central library. As you come to the end of construction, you do get all the claims that come in from subcontractors of changes, and then also identifying what change work we want to implement. As you move into the building and you finalize it, you find lots of things that need to be tweaked, adjusted, and added into the scope, and which is something we've done on all of the projects. And this one will be no different. There are some things, and we went through a very extensive list today with the team, item by item, to just talk about what we want to do, what we don't want to do, to make sure that it's just a good, prudent decision-making process. So that's going on. On insurance, probably one of the big changes was that our builder's risk policy for Central Library ended at the end of December. And Brown and Brown was able to implement all the implementation of the new property insurance. And as Robert has mentioned, to take on and manage that property as we transition from construction into operations. And so that has gone smoothly. They've been working with me on getting builder's risk quotes for the downtown Bend project, and also evaluating where our DSIP, which is our liability program that we put in place for the bond program, and how that is related to when we're finishing up downtown Bend. And so it's just taking a look at what's going to happen over the next year and a half. And are we still positioned well? Do we need to make any adjustments to those policies? And so nothing that has come up of concern. But it is always good just to back check and make sure we're in good shape. From design and construction standpoint, the biggest focus, of course, was completion of all the work at Central, identifying things there, making sure things are ready. We ran into one issue with our early learning elements, which in our mind, they're furniture elements of how they're built and installed and everything. But as we were going through our TCO process, which is the process of the city approving and signing off and finalizing inspections on the building and giving us an occupancy permit. The building inspector raised some questions about how was the early learning evaluated, and he had some questions and concerns about how some of those components may affect fire life safety measures in the building, and how they were related. And in his mind, he looked at it and thought, oh, it's a playground, and it's really not a playground. And it's a code element of how they administer code requirements for play structures for children of all types. And, you have outdoor playgrounds, and then we have what we have in early learning. And so we've gone through a process with the city of giving them a deeper show. Our plans, building plans actually identified all of this, much like it did the furniture. But the city really wanted a deeper dive into it. We received an approval for the majority of all of our early learning components, so we can be installing it. They identified 3 pieces of the early learning, which are very large, tall pieces, some of the little tower elements that we had, that the fire department has asked us to look at how, in the case of a fire, the sprinkler water would actually penetrate through the structure because of its call it like not really a confined space, but a covered space. And so we're working through that with them right now. But from a standpoint of getting all of our FF&E launched and moving forward, everything else has gone really quite smoothly. Not without challenges, especially moving all of the staff and everybody involved. So been the major element there, like I say, of what we're doing out at Central. The Redmond and Sisters Lapine activity is really more monitoring and just looking at how systems are performing, addressing warranty issues, and then any open issues. And again, Downtown Bend has really been about continuing to prepare for opening and processing a few of the change documents that we have there. So not an extensive amount of activity. Our draws were processed and paid, and so that's really pretty much it. Any questions this month?
I see heads shaking no.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you were able to view the photos and stuff. The building is really quite beautiful and turning out that way. And it's now a mess again with lots of furniture, shelving, and everybody filling the space up. So,
Well, we're excited to see it. It really, those pictures were amazing. They were great. It's exciting to see it
yes.
get put together and be ready for a public. So, no other questions for Greg? Okay, we'll let you get the ice plug back in.
All right. That sounds good. Well,
All
thank you
right.
all.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Todd, I think you're up for library news.
All right, and PowerPoint. Let's see. I'm blind. Let's see. Slideshow. See, I'm gonna hold you in suspense because I wanted to first talk about the conference piece, which I realized I missed a couple of things to tell you. One, historically, this board has been very supportive of sending board members to conferences. I think over the last 27 years of being in the Carver model, it's been a really good benefit to the board because a lot of the things that we tell you, when Emily's telling you about what's going on with collection development and intellectual freedom, it's so powerful to hear what's happening nationally. And it actually helps us as a staff as well, because a lot of times we find you will see that we are very much on the leading edge of these things. So with the support of that, it's not just to say that we have conferences, but I also want to highlight that we do support paying for airfare to get there, the conference registration, the hotel, and per diem for food while you're there. So just want to highlight that because I don't want that to be a barrier to be able to go. The thing that I'm asking for you is really this is gonna be the easiest thing I ask of you, is just take a look at this, and if there's any of these you think you might be interested in, just send me an email and say, I might be interested in this or that. And I fully understand you may have to think, well, I'm also going to have to figure out what my entire family's doing and what's happening with things. All that does is help me set the budget. And so there's no problem if you say, hey, I'm going to a couple of these and it turns out you can't go. That doesn't hurt anything. It just allows me to leave room in the budget to make sure that we're well covered. So that's your homework assignment. Send me an email by the next board meeting would be great. And just checking off, hey, I'm interested in some of these. If there's any of these you have questions on, let me know. I will tell you some variations. American Library Association is basically all libraries come together. That's academic, public, school libraries, special libraries. And often there's some very good programs, great speakers. Usually they get some amazing authors or inspirational speakers. With some challenges, you may go to a program like that sounds interesting and you realize, oh, this is like 100% for academic libraries. That has nothing to do with public library. Public Library Association is geared towards public libraries. They only have them every other year. So this is actually so even years. So this is actually one of those years. Would be in beautiful Minneapolis in the spring.
Beginning of April.
Yes.
Yes.
I went to one in Minneapolis in the spring, and you'll notice immediately that there are sky corridors between every building. There's a reason for that. But anyway, that's always a great conference. It's very specific to public libraries. You're guaranteed to find things that fit for us. Oregon Library Association, they meet every year this year and every, I don't know, 4 years, I can't remember. They have a joint conference.
The cadence has changed, so that's why you can't remember, but I think it's every 4 years.
Yeah, so this is with the Pacific North, is it Northwest Library
It
Association?
used to be WLA, but they expanded to PNLA, so it's Washington, Alaska, Idaho, and Oregon.
Yeah, and that will be in Portland this year. Yeah, get a little more sense of things that might be of interest more locally, because this is more regional, so it throws that off a little bit. Anyway, all interesting ones, and if you have an interest in any or want to ask questions about it again, feel free to check with me, and actually any of our library staff would attend that they can give you the inside scoop. So
Yeah, and I'd just like to put in a plug. This is one, I know that it isn't always easy to plan to take time off from your family, but this is one of the primary learning tools in becoming a more effective board member that I know of. I mean, I've gone to these regularly and they have helped me so much to be a better board member. As Todd said, PLA is really focused. Plus, it's a lot smaller conference. I mean, ALA has, I don't even know how many thousand attendees, but it's a huge conference, and it typically is spread at meeting venues all over a major city, and so it's just a lot. It's really a good conference, but PLA tends to be more compact, fewer attendees, and you're still getting that great high level information of what's happening, on a national level and even an international level, to libraries across the world and across our nation. So it's really, I can't emphasize enough how valuable these have been in just educating us so that we can ask better questions. And we can say, why aren't we doing this? Or why are we doing this when other people are doing that? And it just, it's really a great thing.
also, usually, the two national ones usually have some good programs geared towards board members as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you'll also discover, which I know Ann has discovered, a a lot of times when you go to other programs, people are always excited when a board member is there.
Right.
Wow, your library.
It's like, that's really unusual that your library would send you.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, because we have this incredible resource that they identified when they set up the district, and they said, we want engaged board members that know what's going on. So it's a great resource.
Do you ever send board members to SDA conferences?
We have,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
especially when they're here. But yes, and I didn't add that, but thank you, that's a good one. Special Districts Association, which we're a part of, does have an annual conference. I think it's in Seaside. It's coming up in February. And that is often a good one for very specific board trainings, because that's a lot of what they do. And to give you a sense of the types of resources that organization offers to systems like us. Yes, I'll just send you that information. Have any of you been getting emails from special districts about? Okay.
But I did attend that training that happened a couple months ago.
Okay.
It was really good. The one that I think it was a Eagle Crest.
That's
Yeah.
usually what they have. Yeah, they
That's excellent.
they also have a certificate program that you can go through, and it's training on different topics. Some of which you can do online, but some of them they will do like a training on whatever the topic is, and they'll pick 4 places around the state. You can pick which one works well for you.
And I will also say that several of those trainings make the district eligible for a discount in our insurance.
Right, right. So you can get bronze, silver, or platinum certificates. But it's just, again, it's just what, being a better board member and knowing what the law is and what our responsibilities are.
I will send you information on special districts because you are all members. We send them all the board contact information. That's my apologies. I thought because we did that they would be. But I'd recommend maybe getting on and asking to get information from them. They're pretty good about not inundating you too much with information. Maybe I get about once a week, I get an update from them. But it's always good to see what kinds of trainings they have offered. Yes. Okay, now for the fun part. Library moves. So Ian and I were talking about this on Monday, and thank you for the suggestion because a lot's happening right now, and it's you need a game card to know what's going on. So I'm probably going to make this more confusing, but I broke this down into what's happening in downtown Bend because that's the most relevant one for our public right now. I met with a reporter from the Bulletin this morning. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a reporter from Central Oregon Daily, and they just have questions about what's coming up with downtown Bend. So a couple of things that already happened. Our Brooks room is no longer in use. It's not available for public booking. We are actually getting that ready to start setting it up for services when we start shutting down things. At the end of this month will be the last day to use the Hutchinson and the study rooms in downtown Bend. And then right around then is also when I believe, I wasn't totally sure of this. I think February 1st is our last Sunday or the week before that. February 1st is our last Sunday hours. That's also the last day for audiobooks on CD. And then February 2nd, we close the second floor. So we will be, the services when you walk in that building will basically all be on the ground floor. The lobby, the Brooks room, which will be setting up public access computers, and we'll have some collection in there, and the kids area will still be in use as well. And kind of going on what Emily was talking about, the reason for that is we are starting to move books over to Central Library. So that's the first phase of that. March 9th, we will then cut down services even more, where it'll just be the lobby and the Brooks room. And that will go for about a month, and then that's where we're gonna start moving all the kids' books over. And our last day of operation is set for April 10th. So then what's happening on the other side? And this is, if you see anybody, we're looking frantic, because things are happening. We've already started shifting staff over. So this Monday, we officially welcomed the facilities and IT staff. IT is in this weird position where they're stuck between two buildings, and actually facilities is too. But it was our dry run at welcoming people to actually have desks, and they're all set up. And our vendor is frantically setting up desks in that building right now, because our next wave is coming on next Tuesday. That would be the assistant directors, me, our HR team, and Lori, our administrative assistant, will all be starting over there that day. Oops, I should have added one piece, is because of that, I forgot one. This building closes to the public Friday, the 16th will be the last day that this building is open for anybody to just come in the front door and ask. So if you have any meetings with anybody here, we're either going to be making sure we greet you at the door because it's going to be locked, or we'll be asking people to have somebody text you so that you get in the building. And we just, that's part of starting to empty this building out. Our technical services team will be moving over January 26th. And then February 8th, our events, e-services, communications, and development team will all be moving in. February 17th, all the community librarians will be moving in. And then the final big one is March 2nd. We'll start having library operations. That's a lot of the public services staff that work next door, our volunteer services team, all moving over to Central. And obviously we'll be going back and forth a lot. I've logged a lot of miles in the last 4 days, and I'm starting to get to know the train schedules.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Does that mean that between January 20th and March 2nd, it's the building's sort of open to the public, or open by appointment, or?
That building?
Yeah.
No, it is, we don't have full occupancy, so we can't have public in there, which makes it a challenge. So for example, I can't have a board meeting there. It's really just us getting set up, and
So meetings will need to take, if there's outside attendees, meetings will have to happen somewhere else.
yes, yeah, yes. And then some key dates for the Central Library. John Grade's art installation will be done by the 30th. It is pretty amazing. They have massive scaffolding that goes up all the way to the ceiling, so they could start putting in all the wires that need to come in. It looks like an elephant graveyard in there right now, because all of his pieces are laid out and they kind of look like bones. And so that's going in. And do you want to say something about what's happening on Tuesday?
Yeah, so I was contacted by Good Morning, Sunday Good Morning, which is part of CBS's Good Morning program for Sundays, and it's an arts and culture program, and they are highlighting John Grade. And so they're coming out next Tuesday when we're moving into the library. They're going to be there at 6 a.m. with their film crew, and they'll be interviewing John around 7 a.m. and then taking some cool shots. Their main focus is John's art, and I clarified that with the producer. It's not about the library so much. And then the next day, on Wednesday, they're headed to Redmond, and they're going to be interviewing John there as well in the morning. And yeah, getting footage of that art piece.
When will we be able to see it?
It should air, they think, by the end of April. Yeah, early May. So, it's exciting, yeah.
And all these dates are the date these things are supposed to be done. So February 6th, the automated materials handling system will be installed, and that will be all of staff furniture should be installed by the materials handling system. They are putting it together right now. Hopefully it's pretty together because we have a training tomorrow.
It should say January 6th, not February 6th.
Yeah.
Oh, it's January? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's already in.
Oh, okay. Thank you. By March 1st, they should have finished putting in the discovery space. As we heard, that's a little up in the air, but the team just arrived today and is starting to install that equipment. So pretty exciting to see. By the February 20th,
February 2nd.
February 2nd. So there you go. I should have vetted this thing.
I was testing myself. It's just the dynamic nature of this project.
At some point in the future.
That's good. I thought they were farther along. Third floor shelving should be done. So that's really just kind of give you a sense of what's happening right now. There's 3 floors in this building, and there's major activity on every floor. So all of the first floor is taken over by this whole army of people that are putting together all of the desks, which is way more complicated than putting together an IKEA desk. They're crawling underneath the floors to run wires. They're pretty intricate. And so that piece is happening on the 3rd floor. They are putting in all of the shelving. Very exciting piece is the shelving vendor rented a warehouse here in town and actually put together most of the shelves, bringing them in trucks and sticking out. So it's in Redmond, they pieced together everything, and it took a long time. This is like a boom coming in there. And then on the 2nd floor, that discovery space is happening. So there's everywhere. And meanwhile, there's also all the construction crews doing last minute paint pieces, and so a lot happening there. 2nd floor shelving should be done by March 13th.
Very close.
Okay.
I would do the 9th, but you know, you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I meant to say, this is a big tentative. We have an aim of trying to open the drive-through basically right after downtown Bend closes. And that's really up in the air depending on what kind of occupancy we have and what we'll be able to do. So I put a big if on that one. And then we are aiming for May 11th for our soft opening. Again, dates and times may change as we get closer, but those are kind of the big highlights of what's happened. I think, yeah, that was the last thing I had. Yeah, just to give you a sense of what's going on. I'd say for any of us, your best bet, if you're trying to find us, is to text or call, because who knows where we'll be. We could be anywhere. It's very funny that I've been over at Central, and then I come over here and I see somebody I just saw in Central over here. And we're all just shuttling back and forth. So.
Yeah, that's a good question, Todd. I'm just curious. It seems like it's gonna be very loud in there. Is there a reason that you're moving offices with all that construction noise versus staying here in the quiet?
I asked myself that.
I was him that saying that too. I mean, I did. You're curious.
I think because we're moving so many people,
Yeah.
we decided to kind of go in waves rather than all come at once. I will say, amazingly enough, the sound in that building is very well dampened. All of that DLT wood really absorbs the sound, so it's really not that bad.
Nice.
Yeah, especially once they get all the furniture in, most of the activity is going to be happening on the floors above us. But yes.
Just to add to that too, you have to remember too, downtown Bend is so attached to the hip of Central. And that has a lot to do with too, how we're moving people, how we're moving the collections, how we're moving floors. And I think it was also really important to have, you know, our leadership team, the executive team to be there while people are coming in. And so that you'll see, that's why we're kind of all over the place. I'm actually gonna hang out at downtown a lot more. So that like Alyssa and the other managers and supervisors can get all the training that they need and not have to worry about this building up down. So there's method to the madness.
Oh, I believe that.
I was just curious what the method is. Yeah.
There are days when each of us asks, why are we doing that?
It is interesting because Redmond, same deal, but when we had the opening for Redmond, there were, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people in that space, and it wasn't loud at all. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the building really does what it's designed to do.
Yeah, we just need to get in there, get the collections going, the sorter going. We want to
Yeah.
be sure that we're running smoothly next, but when we do open in May, that we know, well, we won't hit all the kinks, but we'll, yeah.
I think one of the ways I described it with my team, because we talked about it today, and they're like, why are we moving so early? And what I shared with them is if the building were like completed, we would be open. And so in order to actually get us ready for opening, all of these steps have to happen at the same time, which includes bringing over the staff ahead of the building actually being done, bringing over the collection ahead of the building actually being done. Because if the building were done and those contractors weren't in there, then it would be open and all of those pieces would have to all be in place. So we are playing together to get to that final goal of opening.
And it's a good thing for us to be in that building because we continue to see things, find things, we're able to still talk to the contractors and say, we need this changed, that changed, even beyond the punch list. Like, so I think it's helpful to be living there a little bit.
The PSS like that we were determining first and make a lot of lighthearted jokes about they can show us where the highlighters are.
I will say the hardest part is being in a building where there's a cafe and it won't be open for another 3 months.
Yeah. Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, so that's my news.
Okay,
Godspeed to all of you.
yes.
So excited.
When you think about moving is daunting as it is, but when you think about moving a library, I mean, the books are always the hardest part of the move, they're the heaviest boxes, so we've got a lot of people moving a lot of heavy boxes. Okay, Michelle, do you have anything on the presentation?
Gosh, it feels like we met forever ago, that little like Christmas hiatus.
Last year.
It was last year, that's true. I think probably, so as the foundation met, we talked, we're, and I think I mentioned this last, in our December meeting, but we're looking at, hiring a strategic planning consultant to help us as a foundation board kind of decide where we want our areas of focus to be going forward, which I think will be really nice for the foundation. It's kind of a new chapter for the libraries, and so it's a new chapter for the foundation and our role, which is supporting the libraries. And so that's not going to happen until probably April. So stay tuned for that. I think, and it's a funny year too. That author roster is not happening this year. We kind of got into a little sidebar conversation that I actually really enjoyed and was glad that we did. And it's just around how can the foundation think outside the box of how we support the libraries and also specifically the library staff who have gone through a tumultuous number of years and then especially right now. And so we just talked about some different ways that we can show up for the people in the building a little bit too. And so I think that was like the high point of that conversation. So yeah, thank you.
That's good. That's really good. Okay, it's gonna be order. Do you want to start, Erin?
I actually did not have the opportunity to participate in anything over this last month with the holidays and traveling and for school performances and.
Okay, Michelle?
I appreciate your honesty. I know I really wanted to get down to see the training guy yet. I did not. So the thing that I participated in this last month was part of the director hiring committee and that. And I really appreciated, and she's gone now, but Jennifer and her help in this process in terms of keeping us all on track. Our scheduler is amazing. But it's such, every person in our libraries plays an important role. And then this director position is just the connector of all of these important pieces. So I've appreciated being involved with it. And I also just kind of look at the enormity of it too, and that settles with me quite a bit. So, yeah.
Let's see, I wanted to report, I go into the library a couple times a month to pick up my books, and without a doubt, every time I go in there, I hear a community member asking a staff member a question about what's happening with their buildings, how Central Library, or providing feedback about how the Central Library looks, and sharing their concerns and that sort of thing. And every time whoever is there responding to the community member's question, they're responding with kindness and empathy and really good listening and good information. And so I just wanted to recognize all of the staff who play a customer-facing role and the good work that's being done by helping to, make people feel a little less afraid, a little less concerned, and a little more informed. So, just want
Thank you.
I really enjoyed taking my daughter and her cousin to the train.
Oh,
And I think the thing that's so fun for me is there's so many grown-ups that took kids there, and the grown-ups are just as enthralled as the kids. It's totally true. It's just a fun way to bring the community.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that has been my experience also. It's like the little kid is kind of minimally engaged in the town and responding right over. It is a fun deal, and I was sad to miss it this year, but then I also was really glad to hear that he was coming back. And I just think no matter where he lands, hopefully it's at Central, because we're going to be able to accommodate much larger crowds, and I think it'll be a better experience for the people that come to see him.
It will be at Central.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Liz and I are late.
Maybe you could talk to John today about building a little rail track.
Yeah.
Let people make my bakery. Yeah, no, it's tremendous. Yeah, I too was kind of caught up in all the things that make up December and January. Yeah, and I will be attending the state library board on Friday. So kind of a double dip for this week. So
I will say, at the Training Man event, we had pictures of his first year, and it was a small track that took up about this much space. And so because that room doubled in size after that, as we have grown, his tracks have grown. So we're just making more and more space for him.
no, he'll see that space in Central. He's not gonna know what to do with it.
Something really cute. So, on this December's events guide, January events guide, we had a photo of a little boy looking at the trains, and he came back. So 15 years later, he was there and took a picture next to the event.
Oh,
He's like almost 20. And yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, so that was super cute.
Okay, well, with that, I think I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. That's really a lot.
Bye, Grace.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Miss you.
That.
You should take
Stop recording.